On this channel, I've looked at a few different routers over the last few years, and apparently TP-Link liked the way that I did that. So they've chosen to send me out a few routers to take a look at. The first one we're going to look at today is the TP-Link AC1900, also known as the Archer C9. So let's dive into it. This is actually one of the less expensive models that they offer right now, but still it offers wireless AC, 1900 megabits per second, so it's 5 gigahertz at 1300 and 2.4 at 600 megabits. It's supposed to have amazing range. It's also got USB 3 as well as USB 2. Here's some more stuff about it on the back of the box. You can do a guest network, parental controls, beamforming, so you can do longer distances, gigabit ports, USB 3. Here's a little diagram of what we're going to see here in a minute, and some comparison of some of the different models they have, although the other ones I look at are actually going to be on the higher end of the spectrum, so we'll come back to that at another time. But of course you can see some of the things that this will do on here. Gigabit ports, USB 3 and USB 2 ports, some applications you can use it for. Just sort of a good run-of-the-mill router. Let's open it up. Aha. So down in the box, of course, you have a power adapter. Mentions 12 volts at 3300 milliamps. Very interesting power there, but it does have just a standard barrel connector on the other end. Of course, you've got the router, but we'll come back to that. A Spanish installation guide. Uh-oh, I don't speak Spanish. Well, I don't speak Spanish very well. Yeah, this is all in Spanish. You get a resource CD. I don't know if I even own anything that will use a CD at this point, but it's a mini disc. Some tech support information, how you get in touch with them if you need to. A GPL notice. There's our English guide. So same manual we had earlier, but all in English now. Bag with 3 antennas in it, and a Cat5e Ethernet cable. And then finally we have the router itself. Looks like there's a layer of plastic on it too. Gotta protect that shiny finish. And as you can see there, the antennas do not come pre-installed. As I mentioned, they are included in the bag. But the good thing about it is it does appear to be a standard size. So we'll go ahead and just install these, and we're in business. That's much more like it. So of course these are flexible. You can point them in whatever direction you want to try to help increase your signal and your output. You have a bevy of what I will assume are lights here on the top. Power, the different Wi-Fi bands, Ethernet, internet connectivity, a couple of USB lights, nothing else on the top or the bottom. It does have a built-in stand, which is not going to be removable because all of the ports and everything are directly on the back, except for the USB 3 port and the Wi-Fi switch. But taking a look at the back there, there's your USB 2 port, a reset and WPS switch, external Ethernet, internal Gigabit Ethernet, power on and off. It's just a switch, very nice. And the power. And I think without any further ado, let me go ahead and put this in place. We'll take a look at the web interface, maybe test the connectivity throughout the house, and we can just see how easy to set up and intuitive this thing might be. And as you can see here, I've gone ahead and plugged the TP-Link Archer C9 router in and set everything up. When you first set it up, on the back of the router, there's some information about logging into it. It actually gives you a 192.168.0.1 address you're supposed to use. But the way that I hooked this up, I plugged into another router, so it's actually using 192.168.1.1. Just keep in mind, if you're plugging directly into your modem, it's going to have a .0.1 address. If you're plugging into something else where there could be a conflict, it may not be that address. But this is the quick setup process. I didn't actually have to do this the first time. You pick your region and your time zone there, give it your connection type. In my case, I'm using a dynamic IP. Tell it if you want to clone your MAC address or not. Give it your wireless network settings. Confirm everything in the summary screen there, and now you can test your connection or hit finish. And by default, you're greeted by the basic interface. It shows you whether your internet connection is up or not, and you can go and look at all the information about the router from here at a very high level. So from the internet section, you can see the IP information, set your DNS settings on here if you want to do that. Under wireless, you can see both of your wireless networks, the 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz, and say whether or not you want to hide your SSID. Under USB, you have file sharing and print server as the options. Once you go into file sharing, if you have devices you added to it, like hard drives, for example, you can come over here and say scan, and it will scan the device just to make sure everything's working. As an example, I've gone ahead and plugged in a USB 3 Msata drive, as well as a little tiny flash drive into the USB 2 port. If I hit scan now, it should find both of them. And there we go. We have a 32 gig flash drive in the USB 2 port, as well as a 250 gig Msata SSD in the USB 3 port. And if you want to access the data on either one of these, you can come down here. If you're on a Windows machine, you can just access it through the network neighborhood by default. If you're not using Windows, you're going to have to do it differently. The only other option you've got is FTP, but you can go ahead and enable that. And if you click on it at this point, it's actually going to go ahead and open up. You can click on it and see what's inside the file system. And if I click on this, it's just a couple of videos I loaded to it. It's going to start downloading. If I hit show all, you can see it's downloading right now. a little over 20 megabytes per second, so decently fast speeds there. I will say I would kind of like to have seen more than just FTP as options on here, especially for the remote, because if you're going to access it outside of your network, you're not going to want to have FTP open. You probably can't have FTP open. But you can set the sharing mode here, and you can require a login to it if you want to do that. But keep in mind, FTP is going to pass the traffic plain text, so any password you give it, it's going to be presented plain text. If we go on over to print server, you can turn the print server on and off. It says here to connect a printer using the USB cable, install the driver on your computer, and then install the printer controller utility on the computer. My printers are actually all wireless at this point, so I'm not going to be using this functionality, but just know it is available. There's also a guest network option here where you can turn on additional networks to present to friends and family members who may be coming over that you don't necessarily want to be able to use your primary internal home network. And if you want to move past this basic information, you can go to advanced, where it's going to give you a load more detail about each one of these selections, including things like NAT controls, parental controls, access controls, bandwidth control. This is definitely a big plus for someone like myself who uploads a lot of videos. So I could say for certain things, for example, only allow a maximum upload speed of this so I don't clog up the entire pipe. Very convenient. I use this already on my existing router. You've also got dynamic DNS support, IPv6 support. So for a relatively mid-level home router, this is definitely not a bad option. And I will say, I've spent a little bit of time with it beyond just this recording. The setup process was super easy. The connectivity has been very stable, and it's been very nice to use. So I'm going to go ahead and put a link down in the description to where you can find this if you're interested in checking it out for yourself. Thanks so much to TP-Link for sending this out for me to take a look at. We've got one more TP-Link router to take a look at sometime soon, so be on the lookout for that. But thank you guys as always for watching. Make sure to hit the thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe to receive more. We'll see you again next time.